Hey guys, welcome to my kitchen. Today we are making kombucha tea, just fermented tea. It's getting pretty popular these days. Has a lot of health benefits. Supposedly it cures everything under the sun. I don't know if it does any of that. Whatever, I don't really buy it, but it does have some health benefits, so it's worth trying. Plus it's really tasty. So what you're going to need today to make kombucha tea is one clean jar. This is 1 gallon. Some clean hands, super clean. You don't want to contaminate your kombucha with any other bacteria except for what's needed to brew it. So yeah, gross fingernails or whatever, you don't want that. So clean hands. Black tea. This cheap Lipton tea is fine. You can use organic tea, I don't care what you use, but black tea or green tea, you don't want to get too fancy with your tea. If you get too fancy with your tea, like with herbals and stuff, your SCOBY won't like it. It'll either increase your ferment time or it just won't work. So anyway, regular plain old black tea, the cheap stuff. Some white sugar, granulated white sugar. This is I don't know, the ultra fine stuff, so it dissolves easier. You don't necessarily need that because it's going to be hot, but it's the kind I use, the kind I buy, so whatever. And last but not least, keep it from dripping, your kombucha SCOBY. This is what ferments the tea. Basically it looks like a big pancake or jellyfish, something like that. Anyway, it eats up all the sugar and ferments the tea for you, so this is important. Okay, step 2. You need to boil the water. Especially if you're on tap water, there's all kinds of stuff in there to kill bacteria and things like that. Well, that doesn't really work very well if you're trying to grow bacteria, so you need to boil water. And you need to boil it with the lid off. That way you release all the crap out of the water. Next thing we want to do, transfer the water into our glass jar. You could make the tea right in the pot if you want. I don't, I put it in the jar. It's just easier that way, whatever. Look at that. Okay, next step is the tea. Like I said, just regular old tea. Nothing fancy. What I like to do is unwrap all the tea bags and make them into this little thing. I tie a little knot in them. Recipe, I use anywhere between 10 and 16 bags of tea probably. I believe there is 12 right here. Take my little teapot here and drop it. And then I just set the cap on it like that. If it's black tea like this, 5, maybe 10 minutes. That's it. You'll see it start to drip down through the container. Okay, it looks like our tea's finished steeping now, so the next step is remove it. Pull your big wad of tea out. I like to squeeze a bunch of the tea out of the bags. You may or may not do that. It can make it a little bit bitter if you do that, but I do it, I don't care. The bags are really hot, so don't do it with your finger. I just throw it in the sink. Next step, get yourself a 1 cup measuring cup. Make sure I'm in the video here. And take your sugar. Measure out 1 cup. Doesn't have to be exact. I like to get it pretty exact. And then you pour this in your tea. Okay, you've got your sugar in your tea now. Give it a little stir, but you just want to make sure you get all the sugar dissolved in there real good. And that's it. Now you have to let it sit for at least a good chunk of hours, or a lot of people do it overnight. I usually kind of set the lid on there a little bit like that so nothing tries to fly in there, bugs or whatever. You need to bring this tea down to room temperature before you can put your culture in there. Otherwise you'll burn your culture and kill your culture, and you don't want to do that. I almost forgot. So that you don't forget, like I just did, get a piece of tape with the date on it and stick it to your jar. That way you know when you started it and you can get your tea with the right ferment and know how many days it went. Okay, our tea's cooled now overnight, and so basically the last step is to drop in the SCOBY. And I have that right here. The SCOBY or mother. Just slip it into the jar. And the last step is to take a clean cloth. This happens to be one pre-made for my kombucha jar. And it's just an old t-shirt. And I just set it on top. I always set the lid on there, just makes it easier. And take a rubber band. Snap it on, pop the lid back off. And that's about it. Generally your ferment will take 7 to 10 days, 7 to 14 days. Just depends on how good of a SCOBY you got and what time of year it is. Let that sit in a cool place where the temperature is not changing all the time. Just set it on the counter in the back corner and check on it from time to time. After a couple days, you'll see right around the top, you'll get a little bit of a layer forming. That is your new kombucha daughter growing on the top. Some people, to keep the mold from growing on it, will shake the jar just a little tiny bit to keep it damp with some acidic stuff on there. Oh, I forgot one step. If you've already grown kombucha once, you want to take about a cup of the former batch and pour it into this batch. Adds a little bit of acid to it and or ferment the tea faster, but it also makes it so it won't get any mold or anything in there as easily because of the acidic environment. Okay, here we have our fully fermented kombucha tea. This is an 8-day ferment, I believe. I don't know, it smells about right, so that's about all there is to it. Remove the cloth here real quick. On the top we have a new fully formed kombucha daughter, they call it. And inside we have, oops, slippery bugger. We have our original kombucha mother. So that's really about it. Okay, final step, filtering out your kombucha. When the kombucha is finished, it will have all kinds of stuff in there, the settling from the tea or whatever. There's all kinds of chunks and chunks of yeast and things. So all I have is I went to the store and bought one of these BPA-free plastic dispensing containers. Just a simple little plastic funnel and one of these little metal. Make sure if you do metal that you get the coated metal, because some people think that the stainless steel and stuff will kill the culture. So plastic or coated metal. This is coated metal. This ended up being about 3 quarts of water. That's what I use. I didn't say that in the first part of the video, I don't think. So about 3 quarts of water, 1 cup of sugar, and 10 to 16 bags of tea. And just pour it in. And there you have it. Put it in your fridge. It'll pretty much keep indefinitely. Sometimes you'll get maybe a little bit of culture growth on the top here in your fridge, but you'll probably be drinking it fast enough that it won't matter. So, and sometimes it'll plug up the spigot. One last tip for you. I drink quite a bit of kombucha while I'm dieting. It really helps me with my satiety. So what I do is I take an old apple cider vinegar bottle like this, and I mark it with a Sharpie. Hopefully you can see that. I just mark 8 ounces on there. And I brew my kombucha a little bit stronger, so it's a little bit more like vinegar. And then the extra liquid in here will help keep you so you don't feel like you need to eat as much if you're a big eater like me. And then just fill it from your spigot up to the 8-ounce line, which is where we're at, and then fill the rest full of filtered water and tip it back. You can do this about twice a day. If you ferment it long enough, it's pretty much 0 carb, and it really helps curb my hunger. So good dieting tip right there. If you want to flavor your kombucha, do it after the fact. Do the full ferment, and then maybe a day or two before you're finished, add in your flavors, your other herbal flavors or whatever. If you want to do it with white tea, I've heard that the trick for white tea is brown sugar, and if you use black tea like we did, you should use white sugar. That way it doesn't slow down your ferment. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed my kombucha tea video.